As always, so bioinformatics, this is a new way of doing biological sciences, so which uses computational approaches to answer the biological questions. So actually, biology is generating huge quantities of data. So that these are complex data, and you need some computational tools to reach a valid biological conclusions. So that this is a very important aspect to reach a valid biological conclusion. So even now in biology, we are also using uh, computational tools. Or science ma पनि computational tools use हुन्छ है त. It's not that only अब there is this questions है त किन biology मै मा computer को use लाई चाहिँ separate subject बनाएको भनेर. You use computers in chemistry as well, in physics as well, but you don't have physics को लागि चाहिँ separate subject matter नै छैन के. So biology मा चाहिँ किन छ त यो? Why is there this subject called bioinformatics? So we should really see biological problems and computational problems as a same, right? So that you say biological problems we can easily handle. So this approach is beginning to change the fundamental way in which the biological science is done and helping us design more elegant experimental setup to do in the laboratory. So you've done bioinformatics, so this will help us to design better experiments in the laboratory. So there has been an explosion of sequence information, structural information, and this is playing a very important role. So the field of bioinformatics is playing a very important role in solving these biological problems. So it can help us to discover new genes, to design molecular modeling, to direct site-directed mutagenesis experiments, site-directed experiments, and many other kinds of experiments. So where we can identify new relationships between genes and proteins. So the functions of genes and functions of proteins we can identify. So we have the weight experiments, and we want to further develop new understanding and new tools so that we can discover new relationship between the genotype and the phenotype. So it's all about discovering new relationship and how we can discover those unknown relationships, right? So we can better identify and better exploit those relationships, genes and proteins, genotype and phenotype. Okay, now let's begin with the internet. So actually internet is a network of network. It is composed of many computers. So it can be a local network or a regional network, and it's actually it's a very big network of a network. So where was its origin? So actually its origin it was as a research project. So there was a research project, and that was being conducted at the US Department of Defense. And so there was a research project called Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, and the military, they also generate lots and lots of useful data. And US is a very large country, and they want to transfer this data from one place, from the East Coast to the West Coast. So they developed, so the military thought that it would be very easy if the computers at the US, at the Department of Defense, they can be connected with one another, so that there will be better communication. Better communication will yield better results. So essentially के रहेछ भन्दाखेरि USDA को एउटा प्रोजेक्ट रहेछ, राइट? अनि त्यो प्रोजेक्टको चाहिँ एउटा सर्टेन पार्ट चाहिँ के रहेछ भन्दाखेरि त्यो एउटा चाहिँ नेटवर्किङ गरेको रहेछ, कम्प्युटर्सहरुको नेटवर्क बनाउन खोजेको रहेछ. सो त्यसलाई चाहिँ हामी के भन्छौँ, that we call the ARPANET. So this is the beginning of the internet in 1969. So it has a very long history, right? So in 1969, US Department of Defense, so they were carrying out these research projects where they can connect different locations, military locations, and align your structure line, right? It's called say hardware component, so software component, like they called it APRANET. So the it connected different parts of the US, four nodes on the west coast. And what was the goal? The immediate goal was to transmit information on defense related research between laboratories so that they can share the information. So again, so this was in 1969, and more progress was done. And in 1981, so BitNet was introduced, providing point-to-point connections between universities to transfer of the electronic mail and files. So the project, so it continued further, and now there was the need to connect between universities. So as you know, so universities are also focal point of research. So different kinds of research, military research, so fundamental research related to biology, physics, all different kinds of research are being carried out at universities, and they need to transfer files, data between one another. And so different universities, they were connected with the help of BitNet. And in 1982, so ARPA, so introduced the Transmission Control Protocol, TCP, and the Internet Protocol, IP, and together we call it TCP IP, right? Allow different networks to be connected to and communicate with one another, creating the system in place. So you just need to remember something called TCP IP. So these are, so just realize that internet has two component, internet. So it has the hardware component as well as the software component. There should be some protocol that has to be established so that the signals can transfer from one place to another, and that can be interpreted. That signal, that signal carries some message, right? यो signal कुन फर्ममा ट्राभल गर्छ वायरमा, signal के फर्ममा ट्राभल गर्छ, signal they travel in the form of voltage, है त voltage difference एकदमै minute voltage difference एकदम fast मान्छेलाई चाहिँ क्यारी गराउन सकिन्छ. So they can travel in that form. So this is how all these systems were created. So as you can see, these are the different nodes in the internet, and the APRANET, right? Actually, it is the APRANET, that is a logical map. So this is in March 1977. So in October 29, 1969, computers at the Stanford and UCLA were connected for the first time. In effect, they were the first host on what would one day become the internet. So this is a very primitive form of internet. So there actually, so internet is a network of network, and we have a very miniature form of that form. So this would later go on to develop our internet, right? Because more and more nodes will be added to this. So different universities, many universities, I would say it's my very ad also. And then we have this system called the internet. So the first message sent across the network was supposed to be login, but reportedly the link between the two colleges crashed on the letter Z. So in the midway, so they were supposed to transmit the message from one node to the another node, from one host to the another host, but somewhere in the middle, the network crashed, and they only could transmit two information, LO information, right? So just imagine 1969, people were just started to connect with one another, and it was such a difficult task even to transfer a very small amount of data, right? Just log in data, just this much data, just realize. So slowly and steadily, so the internet technology, it starts to grow. So internet protocol, so that is the IP address, is a unique address that identifies a device on the internet or a local network. So since there will be many nodes, so since there will be many computers and devices on the internet, now what you need to have a unique address of each devices, so that you know from where the request, from where कहाँनिर चाहिँ मेसेज पठाउनु पर्ने हो, कसले मेसेज गरिरहेको छ भनेर चाहिँ त्यो अल बुझ्नको लागि system ma ke हुनुपर्छ, that protocol that needs a internet protocol IP address, so that every computer, so your computer, my device, my phone, so they all have a unique address, right? And actually, so this is a older form, right? Let's say internet IP version 4 bhन्छ, right? Version 4. So this is the notation to write version 4 and version 6 पनि आइसकेको छ, IP v6 भन्छ. So let's study the IP version 4. So we have this. If you want to connect, so कुनै पनि कम्प्युटरलाई चाहिँ इन्टरनेटमा चाहिँ लोकेट गर्नको लागि you need you have these numbers, right? So there are uniquely identifying one machine at a time. So this is, so if you go on a browser and if you hit this, right, your number, if you hit this, so it will open the NCBI website, right? The 130.14.29.140, right? So it's got there is some meaning, right? It's your protocol there is a meaning set. So your number a meaning. This number might have different meaning, but in the internet protocol, so IP, so TCP IP, so this has something. This has a very different meaning. So so the first you first do the two numbers 130 and 14. Let's say you say NIH को चाहिँ domain हो भनेर चाहिँ यसको meaning दिन्छ, अनि यसको अर्को number 29 subnetting है त, different computers हरू छ है. So एउटा domain को पनि धेरै धेरै computer हुन सक्छ. So many computers, त्यो कम्प्युटरहरुलाई पनि के गरेको हुन्छ, subdomain or sub networking मा चाहिँ divide गरेको हुन्छ. We call that subnet. And then the machine, the particular machine itself को चाहिँ यसको चाहिँ naming हुन्छ, right? So we call it 110. So its meaning चाहिँ, so its from left to the right. So this is the domain, and this is the domain, and this is the subset, and the machine itself. यसलाई चाहिँ हामी .110 भन्छौँ है त. यसको पछि चाहिँ अरु यो चाहिँ पोर्ट को पनि इन्फर्मेसन हुन्छ, त्यसको बारेमा नजाउँ है त. यहाँ कुनै कुनैमा डट लेखेर 88 हरू पनि लेखेको हुन्छ है कुनै कुनै केसेसहरुमा. त्यो पर्टिकुलर पोर्ट फरवर्डिङ पनि गरेको हुन्छ, पर्टिकुलर पोर्टमा चाहिँ गएर इन्फर्मेसन लिनु भनेर है त. लेट्स नट गो इन्टु दैट डिटेल है त. So if you want to access NCBI, either you can type this, right, this website, or you can use this. Right, this is the two ways by which you can connect. Actually, like you are you can convert यसमै भइहाल्छ है यो. This will get converted to this. You convert भइहाल्छ. हामीलाई हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यस्तो राखेको हुँदैन कि there are DNS serversहरु हुन्छ इन्टरनेटमा. So DNS server यो चाहिँ as I said earlier है त, इन्टरनेट भनेको एउटा common resource हो. There are so many things. There are routers and there are switches. There are different kinds of server, right? Different DNS server or bunch. So DNS server, let's say, it can convert this domain, right? So which the humans can clearly understand, and it can convert it into the IP address. With the IP address, so they have stored this information. The information the DNS server store. So just understand that internet is a big public property. It's a big public property. It's सबैजनाले contribute गरेको छ. Right? Even a lot of our taxpayer money, it goes on to build this network. Right? So actually, the size of internet is growing. As you can understand, many new devices are being connected to the internet, and it is currently the number of nodes, right? They are increasing a lot. You just can go through this survey. So at around January 2017, so these many numbers of host computers, devices, they have already been connected to. They have already been connected to IP, the internet, and this number is increasing rapidly. Nowadays, I think you have realized that lots and lots of things, they get connected to the internet. Even your TV, it can get connected to internet, and even your refrigerator or your AC, or your vacuum cleaner, like all that kind of things, they can get connected to the internet. So I think you have realized that, right? Internet ma dekhera kataतिर हेरेर YouTube ma हेरेर, I think you have realized that a lot of things they can get connected to the internet. So that's why the number of devices that are being connected to internet, they are increasing exponentially. So that's why अब आइपी एड्रेसेसको पनि नयाँ भर्जनहरू आएको छ है त इन्टरनेट प्रोटोकल भर्जन 6 भन्छ V6 आइपी V6 भन्छ so that त्यो नयाँ नयाँ डिभाइसेसहरूलाई युनिक एड्रेस दिनको लागि right unique address दिनको लागि चाहिँ so they have generated this new version. So connecting to internet, right? So you can connect to internet. So for that you need a computer, right? And then you need to have a connection, right, to the computer. And there are many things in between, right? So actual physical connections, you need physical connections. So then the meaning is that you need wire running from one computer to the internet backbone, as well as the service providers who handles the issues of routing and content once created. So there's this physical part pani huncha, this is this physical connection, and there are also these so you need the internet service provider as well. So internet service provider le ke ko paisa lirahcha? Anybody? So if the internet is free, quote unquote, it's free since it's a common property, and what are these companies, IP, this internet service provider, ISP, they are charging you for? के को चार्ज गरिरहेको छ यिनीहरूले? उत्सव
So data को होला.
डेटा को सो त्यसको लागि त अब सब तपाई र म चाहिँ नाउ अब you have a very good movie, तपाईले चाहिँ you downloaded yesterday and now you want to transmit that movie, हुन्छ नि मलाई ट्रान्समिट गर्न मन छ भने अब म के गर्छु भन्दाखेरि we to establish a connection in our phone, right? So Bluetooth बाट चाहिँ वा कुनै टेक्नोलोजी बाट we to establish the phone. त्यो फोन इस्टाब्लिश गरेपछि त I get the information. गुगलले त मैले त गुगललाई पैसा तिर्नु परिरहेको छैन त. I don't need to pay Google money for using the Google service. मलाई त्यो इन्टरनेट वायर मात्र कनेक्ट गरे भएन त. के को पैसा तिरिरहेको हो त हामीले पैसा तिरेको भनेको चाहिँ त्यसको हार्डवेयरको कस्ट हो है त. त्यो मेसिनहरूले रन गर्नुपर्छ नि. सो मेनी मेसिन्सहरू चाहिँ रन भइरहेको छ है त. कति एउटा चाहिँ I think a few months ago I think we heard that कनेरी चाहिँ ट्रान्स पेसिफिक एरियाको चाहिँ केबलहरुमा चाहिँ समस्या आएको कारणले इन्टरनेट स्लो हुन्छ भनेर there was this message circulate भइरहेको थियो सोशल मिडियामा. And that who pays for that? And somebody has to pay for that. जुन अब यो चाहिँ अन्डरग्राउन्ड केबल्सहरु ओशनको फ्लोरमा अन्डरग्राउन्ड केबल भइरहेको छ, कसले पे गर्ने that? So that infrastructure को प्राइस पे गरिरहेको somebody, हाम्रो इन्टरनेट सर्भिस प्रोवाइडरले पनि अर्को सर्भिस प्रोवाइडरलाई पैसा तिरिरहेको हुन्छ, राइट? के को पैसा तिरिरहेको छ भन्दाखेरि त्यो सर्भिस प्रोवाइडरले बनायो होला त्यो सर्भिस, त्यो सर्भिसमा चाहिँ त्यो गेन गरेको त्यो नेटवर्कमा एक्सेस गरेको चाहिँ पैसा तिर्नुपर्छ. त्यो फिजिकल इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरको डीएनएस सर्भरहरु मेन्टेन गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. सो मेनी इक्विपमेन्ट्सहरु तिनीहरुलाई बत्ती बाल्नुपर्छ, त्यसको पैसा तिरिरहेको है त. So similarly there are different kinds of wires, the different history ko different time we used different kind of wires. So these are the copper wire, I think you have seen them, and these are the coaxial wire, and now these are the latest, the fiber optics cable. So traditionally, if you wanted to, at least 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, 17 years ago, if you wanted to connect to the internet, then the one way was to connect to the your telephone wire. घरमा जुन टेलिफोनको तार आएको हुन्छ, त्यो टेलिफोनको तारमा युज गरेर मोडेमहरु युज गरेर, right? You use the modems, and with that you could access the internet. Right? And इसको स्पीड कति हुन्थ्यो? एकदमै स्लो स्पीड, 28 to 56 kilobits per second. That is the kbps. Right? So it's a very small. I think. Do you know how to convert bit to byte? What's to convert bit to byte? So can you convert this kilobits to kilobyte? Huh? Anybody? Question how to convert these kilobit to kilobytes? Okay, please go through it. So how to convert a polycyclic? I think you have read about a lot of these things. So actually, you just need to divide by 8. Right? 8 divide you can convert bit to the byte. So what was the problem with why it was very slow? The data transfer was very slow because actually, so these conventional copper wires, they were actually designed to transmit information, transmit voice information. अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ जुन स्विचेसहरू छ, राउटर्सहरू छ, त्यो पनि दे वुड बी एक्सट्रिमली पुअर, एकदमै पुअर हुन्थ्यो. त्यो भोइसको इन्फर्मेसनलाई डेटाको इन्फर्मेसनमा कन्भर्ट गर्न एकदमै अप्ठ्यारो हुन्थ्यो. द्याट्स वाइ दे वर एक्सट्रिमली इनएफिसियन्ट है त. एकदमै यहाँबाट यु कुड नेभर ह्यान्डल हाई स्पिड डेटा ट्रान्समिसन. And then what was the problem? Your problem by solution garnako lagi chai, now you could have the integrated services digital network ISDN भन्ने चाहिँ स्ट्याप लाइक सर्भिस, नयाँ किसिमको सर्भिस आयो. बट अब यसको पनि समस्या के थियो भन्दाखेरि actually this was quite expensive. It was very expensive and you had to you needed a dedicated wiring. So नयाँ वायरिङ गर्नुपर्ने थियो हुन्छ नि, जुन अब टु कनेक्ट टु द इन्टरनेट. Now every household it needs to have a dedicated wiring, and its pricing structure it was quite costly, per minute cost थियो. So that's why ISDN it quickly ran out of favor for other alternatives. So what was the other alternatives? So other alternatives के थियो? So another alternatives was to use the cable modem. घरमा जुन केबलको तार आउँछ नि, so you can also use internet from that. You can connect to the internet. So now you don't need to have a separate wiring. So coaxial wires, right? You have seen the coaxial wire, coaxial cable. So a substantial number of household, they had this cable wire. Now you could have a high-speed internet through this wire. So the high-speed internet was around up to 0.4 megabits per second. So it was quite high, quite fast speed compared to the. It was quite fast and quite and least expensive, quite not as expensive as ISDN service. And यसकोमा चाहिँ अब त्यहाँबाट पनि you could get internet. So त्यो भन्दा पनि अर्को चाहिँ सोल्युसन के हुन सक्छ भन्दाखेरि डिजिटल सब्सक्राइबर लाइन्सहरू, राइट? जुन जुन स्ट्यान्डर्ड टेलिफोन लाइन छ घरमा, that standard telephone line it can be converted to let's say internet, high speed internet को लागि चाहिँ you can convert. So wiring नयाँ wiring गर्नु परेन र टेलिफोनको तार त धेरै ठाउँमा पुगिसकेको हुन्छ. So now you don't need a new telephone wire as well. So you don't need new coaxial wire as well. जुन copper छ, twisted copper wireहरू छ. So त्यही conventional copper wire बाट नि you can transmit higher data at higher speeds. एकदमै यसको चाहिँ around 0.8 to 7.1 speed हुन्थ्यो. अनि त्यसको लागि चाहिँ now there were two types of DSL connections, a special kind of DSL connection हुन्थ्यो, that is the ADSL connection भन्ने हुन्थ्यो. I think a lot of you have heard about ADSL है त. So ADSL मा के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि आउने डेटा, राइट, चाहिँ जाने डेटा भन्दा फास्ट हुन्छ. That's why it's called the asymmetric because so the downloading, so transmission in are faster than the transmission out. So the systems was engineered, right, in such a way that super fast transmission in the in direction, that is the downloadings they were fast compared to out, that is compared to the uploading. So direction being 10 to 5 to 10 times slower. यो किन गरेको होला? Why was this done? So you किन गरेको भन्दाखेरि normally if you are using internet, so you download much, right? The download जुन छ, the in is always greater, very greater than the out, right? So the system was designed in such a way that so in आउने चाहिँ क्यापेसिटीलाई चाहिँ हामीले के गरेको छौं भन्दाखेरि एकदमै इन्क्रिज गरेको छौं. So using this approach, maximum amount of bandwidth can be used without necessitating the new wiring. And यसमा चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि they don't have to compete with the neighbors for the bandwidth. So नजिकैको, so earlier coaxial cable मा, right? So coaxial cable मा TV signals वाला केबलहरुमा what problem we see is that यो एउटा चाहिँ यो bandwidth sharing को problem चाहिँ देखिन्थ्यो. Bandwidth sharing को problem देखिने भएको कारणले चाहिँ, so this was the problem. As more and more homes are connected to the cable modem, service effectively slows down as more signal attempts to pass through a given node. A particular node बाट more and more information pass गर्न खोज्छ. किन भन्दाखेरि these services are designed in such a way that यो चाहिँ फेरि केबलको सर्भिस के हुन्छ? केबलमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि lots and lots of data आउने मात्र डेटा हो. केबलमा डेटा बाहिर जाँदैन. टिभी if you are watching a cable television, so के छ त्यसमा? बाहिर इन्फर्मेसन जाँदैन नि, राइट? इन मात्र आउँछ नि इन्फर्मेसन. इन्टरनेटमा त के हुनुपर्छ? इन पनि हुनुपर्छ, आउट पनि हुनुपर्छ. That's why it requires a different kind of modems, different modems चाहिन्छ. त्यो इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर पनि अलिकति डिफरेन्ट हुनुपर्छ. So यसमा चाहिँ के थियो भन्दाखेरि so your subscriber line have a direct connection to the central office. सिधै त्यो जुन हाम्रो जुन तार छ त्यो सेन्ट्रल अफिसमै जाने हो, टेलिफोनको तार. That's why they don't have to compete with the neighbors for the bandwidth. यता शेयरिङ गरेको हुन्छ भनेर भन्छ नि, अहिले पनि इन्टरनेट चाहिँ डेडिकेटेड इन्टरनेट कनेक्सन गर्ने दुईटा स्टाइल छ. एउटा चाहिँ भन्छ शेयरिङ कनेक्सन पनि हुन्छ, ब्यान्डविथ शेयरिङ पनि गरिरहेको हुन्छ. कोही चाहिँ कुनै चाहिँ डेडिकेटेड कनेक्सन हुन्छ. सो यस्तै किसिमको कन्सेप्ट हो है त्यो. So अब चाहिँ now अब अर्को चाहिँ you can even have the cellular networksहरूले पनि they can provide the data, they can provide the internet connection. You can get connected with the help of data. त्यसको लागि चाहिँ अब क्लोजेस्ट टावर जुन छ त्यो क्लोजेस्ट टावरसँग चाहिँ फोनले कन्ट्याक्ट गर्यो एन्ड द क्लोजेस्ट टावरबाट चाहिँ you get your internet connection. So अहिले चाहिँ अब this can have the current speeds are around 400 kbps. अब यो चाहिँ नयाँ 3G 2G को टेक्नोलोजीको कुरा हो. अब 4G कनेक्सन 5G कनेक्सनमा त I think you can have around 1 gigabyte speed है त, around 1000 mbps को पनि स्पिड चाहिँ आउँछ यति mbps को. So that's a very high speed connection. So now there is this another technology in the internet technology, so that is the electronic mail. So immediately after email established bhayeपछि, so internet established bhayeपछि, people there was this so much excitement about this electronic mail. While we were getting connected with the internet, त्यतिखेर चाहिँ आफ्नो इमेल चाहिँ हुनु भनेको चाहिँ it was considered very धेरै त्यसको चाहिँ भ्यालु हुन्थ्यो क्या, लाइक आई हेभ माई इमेल भनेर. सो फर्स्ट टेक्नोलोजी कुन डेभलप भयो भन्दाखेरि इन्टरनेटको टेक्नोलोजी चाहिँ एउटा इलेक्ट्रोनिक मेल पनि भयो. So it was used for sending, receiving and replying to messages. So it was extremely quick, right? अनि कन्भर्सेसन्सहरु गर्नु भन्दा चिपर थियो. टेलिफोन कन्भर्सेसन एकदमै लेन्दी मेल्सहरु सेन्ड गर्नु छ भने अब like all many advantages of email. So the स्टोर गर्न मिल्छ, एकदमै चिप पनि हुन्छ, right? Getting more control to the individual over the workflow. So यसले चाहिँ एकदमै चाँडै it revolutionize है त. So even it has certain problem है त, advantages disadvantages पनि छ. So एउटा चाहिँ it can be the issue of यसको चाहिँ के हुन सक्छ, security हुन सक्छ. So as our mail it travels to its recipient, it may pass through a number of remote nodes, and at any one of these messages may be intercepted and read by someone with high level access such as system administrator, right? So usually there is always this problem. So mails, it can be intercepted by someone, right, intruder, and they can read your emails. Second issue, privacy को पनि छ, industrial setting मा के छ. So maybe त्यो अफिसियल कम्युनिकेसन्सहरू चाहिँ हेर्न मिल्छ है त. त्यो पहिले नै साइन गर्दाखेरि नै while you are signing for an system अब इन्स्टिट्युसनल इन्डस्ट्रियल कम्पनीको चाहिँ मेल एड्रेसहरू छ भने त्यो कम्पनीको मेल एड्रेस दे क्यान चेक है त, उनीहरूसँग त्यो एक्सेस हुन्छ हेर्ने. So the users of the email system should always find out whether the organization policy regard appropriate use and confidentiality so that they may use the tool properly and effectively. So these are some of the concerns about the email technology. It's a very effective technology, but there are certain concerns of security and privacy. And now we have the file transfer protocols. So if you want to transmit, but now you now you don't need file transfer protocols. Normal browser so normal browser it can download, or normal HTTP response or you can download large quantities of files. You don't need for a FTP server or FTP protocols. So email it's very difficult to send large amount of data, right? Files or only text. So the solution so solution was the FTP. FTP this is your computer, and now this is your dedicated FTP server, and now certain commands are right, commands, and with that commands now you can get connected, maybe username and password, all that FTP commands and FTP responses, and then the data, the connection can be established between the FTP server and your computer, and you can download lots and lots of files. Right? So normally we are talking about the biological sequence data, the data, biological data. Now these lines, these FTP transfer, FTP protocols, file transfer protocols are extremely fast compared to the normal connections. Right? So the file transfers are very fast, with speeds varying with time of the day, the distance between the client and the server machine, and the overall traffic on the network. So now that let's say you don't get your file transfer protocols, browser browser technology advanced the browsers you needed a dedicated software file transfer. And now we have the internet technology, so that is the World Wide Web, right? So FTP file transfer protocols file transfer protocols FTP server I think you guys haven't you say FTP server I think you haven't gone through FTP server your technology this is your technology it has already been eradicated. Your technology it doesn't exist anymore because it was a quite cumbersome technology. So you have to enter a particular directory. File transfer you say FTP, we don't do this anymore. Right? And then you can only see the names of the directories of the files. So actual files, to actually view that files, so it's quite, you need to download that file to the computer. File to content so you can see that there is a file called something .doc. You can see that file. Now actually you cannot view this file. What is the file viewing with the help of browser, but then you couldn't. You need to actually download that file, and then you have to use it. So this could like say you say internet why you need to download it. Now this is very difficult. यसलाई चाहिँ हेर्नको लागि मात्र चाहिँ so they developed a new technology. Right? So that is the the older the earliest version of the World Wide Web was the distributed document delivery systems, DDDS. Right? So it was an interactive client server application that allowed the information to be viewed without having to perform a download. So download nagarikana, you can see that. And then later this evolved at the European Nuclear Research Council, CERN at 1989, it evolved into a www. So यसबाट के हुन्छ now with the help of a browser www मा वर्ल्ड वाइड वेबमा सो यसमा चाहिँ टेक्स्ट इमेजेस साउन्ड भिडियोजहरू सबै कुरा हेर्न मिल्छ है त अब अहिले त HTML5 भन्छ राइट नयाँ यसको HTML5 को नयाँ प्रोटोकल आएको छ त्यसमा चाहिँ सो यु क्यान सी एभ्रिथिङ है त www को यो चाहिँ HTML चाहिँ यसमा चाहिँ यसको लेयरमा अपरेट्स है त www को लेयरमा So now you have your internet, right? You have your internet, and there is this a client browser with the web browser software, client computer with the web browser software, and what do you send? You send a HTTP request. HTTP request or पठाउँछ. So computer गरिरहेको हुन्छ क्या, automatically गरिरहेको हुन्छ. So if you want to see either you say Chrome मा गएर you can see either क्रोममा गएर HTTP रिक्वेस्ट के थियो भनेर हेर्न मिल्छ इन्स्पेक्ट एलिमेन्ट्सहरू भन्ने हुन्छ नि क्रोममा इफ यु राइट क्लिक सो के गर्न मिल्छ त्यहाँ क्रोममा राइट क्लिक गरेपछि यु क्यान सी है के रहेछ भनेर ओके है त त्यसपछि वाट ह्यापन्स देयर इज दिस HTTP रिक्वेस्ट जान्छ HTTP रिक्वेस्टको चाहिँ फेरि HTTP रेस्पोन्स आउँछ है त देयर इज दिस रेस्पोन्स प्याकेटमा चाहिँ जान्छ यो इन्टरनेट थ्रुबाट यो इन्टरनेट जुन छ हार्डवेयर राइट त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ जान्छ एन्ड देन यु क्यान ह्याभ दिस सो द वर्ल्ड वाइड वेब WWW, commonly known as the web, is an information system where the documents and other web resources are identified by the URL, which may be interlinked by hyperlinks and are accessible over the internet. The resources on the web are transferred via the HTTP, the hypertext transfer protocol. This is a protocol. Now everything has to be a protocol so that you can understand. So let's develop a protocol. So now we have a hypertext transfer protocol. So maybe accessed by the user by a software application called the browser, and they are published by a software application called the web server. So web server run. So the World Wide Web is built on top of internet. So actually it's built on the top of internet. So now let's learn a little bit about the URL. So URL stands for the Uniform Resource Locator. So URL is nothing more than an address of a given unique resource on the web. So in theory, each valid URL points to a unique resource. Such resources can be a HTML file or a CSS document or an image. CSS भनेको cascading style sheet भन्छ के यसलाई चाहिँ नयाँ जुन HTML5 मा चाहिँ यो चाहिँ डेटा जुन स्टाइल देखाउनको लागि चाहिँ सेपरेट युज गर्ने भनेर भन्छ पहिले चाहिँ एउटैमै हुन्थ्यो HTML पेजमै हुन्छ नि all the style को पनि गरिन्थ्यो now the content and the style they are separated right so there is this CSS on a separate CSS को file हुन्छ separate file हुन्छ now everything right every resources can be an HTML page CSS document an image and video JavaScript file JS file everything. So URL is composed of different parts, some mandatory and other optional. So yeah, so you have this HTTP protocol, right? So FTP over FTP over there is this FTP and this you say domain name and then there is this port. I think port port server different port 1, 2, 3, 4. So normally the हामीले access गर्ने conventionally 80 port हो 80 port मा चाहिँ जुन first हुन्छ नि main द हामी एक्सेस गर्छौं त्यसको चाहिँ राखेको हुन्छ 80 now these are the path to a file त्यहाँ कम्प्युटर त कम्प्युटर हो, right? Server is a computer. So कुन file हो? Path to my file.html, and now you can have different parameters as well. The key one, यो value यति भयो भने, right? So there is this यो get set response भन्ने हुन्छ है त, get set responseहरू, get responsesहरू देखिन्छ, set responsesहरू देखिँदैन, right? If you are sending है त यस्तै फेसबुकमा पनि लगइन पेजबाट if you are writing the username and password, the password username and password पनि हुन्छ, parameters हो, there are parameters, but you don't see those parameters किन they are the separate यो get set भन्ने चाहिँ way हुन्छ, get set way भन्ने हुन्छ, and now document है त. So you can learn more, I think, and I have given some link है त, यसको meaning के हुन्छ, right? So you can learn more about the URL. Now let's talk about this client server model. What is the client server model? So in computing, a server is a piece of computer hardware or software, computer program that provides functionality for other programs or devices called the clients. Now we have this server, right? Your server, there is something, right? So there is a game, there is some documents, right? Something that you want to, there is a song, there's a movie, and that you want to access, right? A service, okay? It can be a service also. It can be a Netflix server. So you can access this, say the client server, desktop, phone, laptop, right? So a client is a piece of computer hardware or software that accesses a service made available by the server. So this architecture is called the client server model. Server can provide various functionalities, often called the services, such as data sharing or resources among multiple clients, or performing computation for a client, or even you can do computation at the end. Okay, if I have some computation problem, so my computer there is no enough resources, right? Processing power, what you can do is that you can do those calculations over on a server. Server you can do it. And now let's talk about telnet. The telnet is a protocol. It's a very old protocol. Telnet protocol. So now you can connect computers. Computers, your computer, आपको computer में अपनी connect करना मिलता. And then so त्यही हो. So now how do you connect? त्यो भन्न खोजेको सो एउटा तरिका भनेको चाहिँ के पनि हो, सो द्याट इज द विथ द हेल्प अफ टेलनेट. टेलनेट पनि दिस इज अ भेरी ओल्ड टेक्नोलोजी. अहिले चाहिँ नयाँ सेक्युर सेल भन्छ, सेक्युर सेल पनि आइसकेको छ, किन टेलनेट वाज राइट अन सेक्युर, त्यति सेक्युर थिएन. सो नयाँ टेक्नोलोजी आएको छ टु कनेक्ट डिफ्रेन्ट नेटवर्क सर्भिसेसहरू प्रोभाइड गर्नको लागि. एन्ड नाउ यु क्यान एक्सेस विथ द हेल्प अफ दिस secure cell protocol भन्छ है, SSH भन्छ. So now let's basic के हो त telnet को? It's a protocol, right? It's a protocol that allows you to connect to a remote computers, right? घरमा बसेपछि if you want to do, you can get connected to a server. So the server को लागि चाहिँ now you can use this telnet protocol over a TCP IP network such as internet. So using telnet, client software on a computer can make a connection to the telnet server, that is the remote of the host. So yeah, telnet products, what you can do, telnet usually this is a client, now you can get access at certain commands, or you can run this server run गर्न सकिन्छ. So यसको problem के थियो? So with the help of this telnet usually over the end TCP IP network मा यसको problem के छ भन्दाखेरि यो secure छैन त्यति, right? And then नयाँ टेक्नोलोजी फेरि नयाँ प्रोटोकल चाहिँ डेभलप भएको थियो है त. secure cell भन्छ है त, SSH भन्छ है त. This is more robust. यो चाहिँ more यसमा चाहिँ better यो चाहिँ यो security चाहिँ यसको अझ राम्रो छ है त. Some of the frequently used terminologies के छ, there is some computing platform. So यसको meaning के हुन सक्छ? यसको meaning के हुन सक्छ? Where the piece of software is executed. So it can be a hardware or operating system or even a web browser. So even web browser are extremely powerful these days. Right? एकदम powerful हुन्छ web browser पनि. They can do many things. So normally के हो? Microsoft computer, Microsoft or Macintosh computers or Apple. So they are the computing platform. So LAN is the local area network. यसमा चाहिँ around. So small number new network हो. So network हो भएपछि there are these computers. एउटा होम पनि ल्यान्ड नेटवर्क हुनसक्छ सो द्याट यु क्यान सेयर इन्फर्मेसन है त इन्फर्मेसन सेयरिङ गर्नको लागि चाहिँ यु डेभलप दिस ल्यान्ड नेटवर्क so few computers one user they can have an enterprise network with thousands of users and devices such as in an office or school Java, right? Java is a high-level programming language. It's a high-level that was developed by the Sun Microsystems in 1995. And its main advantage is you can run Java programs everywhere, right? You can run Java program on in any kind of platform. The Unix you can operate जुनै पनि. So it is platform independent. पहिलेको कोडिङ्सहरु के हुन्थ्यो भन्दाखेरि they were platform dependent. So Unix is also a computing platform, right? Or Linux, right? Linux is a computer platform, right? Linux or the Microsoft, right? Microsoft MS or Apple or the Macintosh. So पहिले के थियो भन्दाखेरि you different program you different if you want to design a software so Unix को लागि एउटा separate बनाउनु पर्थ्यो Linux को लागि separate Microsoft को लागि separate Macintosh को लागि separate so this were the extremely popular है त एकदम popular मात्र हो यो so there were other Unix like servers right or Unix like platformsहरु त्यसको लागि त it will be very difficult so what was Java solved that problem so Java मा के थियो भन्दाखेरि you have this एउटा चाहिँ write once so you can write the program and you can run it everywhere so that means the compiled Java code can run on platforms that support Java without need to recompile so you don't need to do that it was platform independent so that was a very important property एकदमै त्यतिखेर Java 1995 मा रिलिज हुँदाखेरि एकदमै it was considered to be a great milestone है त एकदमै even till date है त Java is extremely popular now you have Python है त एकदम Python छ even then है त C छ C++ छ right so many programming language PHP but still the charm of Java it hasn't reduced एकदमै high level एकदमै efficient एकदमै राम्रो programming language हो एकदमै something right भन्छ नि कुनै languagesहरु like Sanskrit is a very good language एकदमै it will refine your mind when it's the Java is this kind of language if you study Java your mind will get refined either so there is this about Aru HTML so HTML is the hypertext markup language it's a standard text-based language used to specify the format of a World Wide Web document so HTML files are translated and rendered through the help of a web browser so formatting कसरी गर्ने right कुलाई चाहिँ red text गर्ने I think you all have done some bit of यो स्क्रिप्टिङ है त HTML को स्क्रिप्टिङ गर्नु भएको छ होला सबैले यस्तो ब्र्याकेट राखेर यो चाहिँ बोल्ड भन्ने प्याराग्राफ भन्ने राइट यसको एन्ड राइट यसरी यहाँनिर हेडलाइन राख्ने राइट H1 all that thing है त यो के मिनिङ हुन्छ that is meaning and that meaning is interpreted by the web browser right so there is this hyperlink भनेको so every graphic text in the World Wide Web document can be selected using a mouse so यसमा क्लिक गर्न सकिन्छ and then त्यो लिंकबाट चाहिँ you can go to somewhere else right so that link so that is called it's not a link that is a hyperlink it's a hyper so link so you have a link and from that link you can go to the another link and from that link you can go to the another link so that is the hyperlink so hypertext भनेको के हो it's a similar thing either so it's a word phrase a chunk of text at anything either or an image or a document so that has been linked to the another text document so it can be textual hyperlinks or the graphical ones so just these are how you can link so GUI भन्छ GUI is the graphical user interface it refers to software front end that rely on pictures and icons to direct the interaction of user with the application right अब यहाँबाट चाहिँ लिंकहरु क्लिक गर्दै गर्दै पिक्चरहरुमा क्लिक गर्दै माउसबाट चलाउने हो भने we call that GUI, graphical user interface. अब कमान्ड लाइनबाट चलाउने हो भने राइट, कमान्ड लाइनबाट अघि हामीले चाहिँ जुन टेलनेट युज गर्यो द्याट टेलनेट चाहिँ कमान्ड लाइनबाट चलाउने हो, सिएमडी लाइनबाट, कमान्ड लाइनबाट राइट. द्याट इज भेरी डिफिकल्ट राइट, इन्टुइटिभ पनि हुँदैन राइट. यहाँ क्लिक गर्ने चक्क यहाँ चाहिँ विन्डोजको बटनमा जाने, यु क्लिक द्याट, फोल्डरमा क्लिक गर्ने, द्याट इज इजी. So GUI, that's the graphical user interface, is very popular, and right, there is this called firewall. So it's another piece of computer or a computer or software. Right? The firewall, it can be computer as well as it can be hardware component plus it's a software component, duty component with a firewall. So it's a computer, it's a hardware as well as software that separates a computer, company or organization's internal network from the public part. So if any of the same network intended to prevent unauthorized access to private computer systems. So since every computers, they are in this great network, right, internet. So there can be infiltration, right? Some people with a malicious intent can enter into the other network. So that has to be avoided. So this like you need a firewall. Firewall there's a specific user line, right, with a particular IP address, a certain information. So that is the firewall. So your normal computer, right, your Microsoft computers, Windows computer, inbuilt firewall accounts, right? The firewall accounts. So that problem, right? Normally, you say firewall, like say able garnu parcha bhanera softwares if you are using this P2P network, right? The torrent network, or if you are using, so like सुरुमा permission माग्छ that this network like say please यहाँबाट जुन ट्राफिक आउँछ एकदमै ह्युज ट्राफिक हुन्छ P2P नेटवर्कको पनि, जुन ट्राफिक हुन्छ त्यो ट्राफिकलाई चाहिँ प्लिज एक्जम्प्ट फ्रम द फायरवल, बिकज यसले ह्युज अमाउन्ट अफ डेटा लिइरहेको हुन्छ एन्ड कम्प्युटर माइट सस्पेक्ट, राइट, द सफ्टवेयर might suspect that these are malicious attacks, the malicious entry into the user's computer. So that's why you need to turn off your firewall, or you should allow the access to these softwares. So that is the concept of firewall. Okay, this much for today. So this is how this was the short introduction, right, about the internet technologies. So any questions, any queries? के छ क्वेशन्सहरु छ आजको क्लासको? कोही बोल्नु हुँदैन त आज, के हो, व्हाट्स ह्यापनिङ?
छैन सर।
ओके, छैन. ओके, इफ यु हेभ एनी प्रब्लम्स, एनी क्वेरीज है त यो इन्टरनेट टेक्नोलोजिजहरुको बारेमा है त यु क्यान आस्क इन द नेक्स्ट लेक्चर है त, के भइराको छ डेटाबेसेसहरुको बारेमा चाहिँ सो द्याट जस्ट यो चाहिँ अब त्यति समटाइम्स दे माइट आस्क यु इन द क्वेशन्स है त, कहिले काहीँ चाहिँ क्वेशन्सहरु यो पार्टबाट पनि इन्टरनेट टेक्नोलोजिजहरुको पार्टबाट पनि दे क्यान आस्क यु, बट द्याट ह्यापन्स भेरी रियरली. Your course is all about computer. This is all about bioinformatics. The next lecture we'll start studying about the different databases, right? The primary, secondary, and tertiary or the derived databases ko bare mein padhchu. But if you have any queries about the internet technologies as well, right, you can ask me in the next lecture, right? Because it's very essential. If you study, you can study any subject, whether you study physics or chemistry or management or biology, biotechnology, any subject. You should have a very clear understanding. You must have a very good understanding of the internet technology. Internet कसरी operate गर्छ, you should have certain understanding. So for that, you need to go through this material, right? The material मा जानुस् and then study कसरी, how the computers are being connected with one another, how the internet it functions, है त मैले अघि भने नि लाइक हामी कसलाई पे गरिरहेको छौँ like whom are we paying for the internet. So all these kinds of questions, these are very relevant questions. So I think a few years ago there was this free internet movement. Like I don't know how much कतिजनालाई थाहा छ यो फ्री एक्चुअली अझ यो इन्डियामा चाहिँ फ्री इन्टरनेट मुभमेन्ट एकदमै थियो. सो त्यसको बारेमा पनि इफ यु हेभ यु क्यान डु सम सर्चेस है त. अनि त्यसपछि वी क्यान डिस्कस है त इन आवर नेक्स्ट लेक्चर डिफ्रेन्ट. अब तपाईँहरू आई थिङ्क यु हेभ सर्टन अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ अफ तपाईँहरूसँग कुनै प्रोग्रामिङ ल्याङ्ग्वेजको पनि छ है अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ. प्रोग्रामिङ ल्याङ्ग्वेज गर्नुभएको छ?
C language.
Okay, you have gone through C programming as well. त्यति हामी we don't go through programming. यो कोर्समा प्रोग्रामिङ चाहिँ गर्दैनौँ. But if we have some time, हामी some Python कोड्सहरूको चाहिँ हामी will study about some Python codes. Python ल्याङ्ग्वेजमा चाहिँ हामी गर्छौँ. Python or R भन्ने प्रोग्रामिङ छ. स्ट्याटिस्टिक्समा बढी युज हुने प्रोग्रामिङ छ. You can do that है त कि त R कि त Python. So just to get you acquainted with this internet technology as a course too. Okay, so this much for today. Let's meet on Monday. Okay, have a great day ahead and stay warm. Okay, goodbye.
Bye bye, sir.
Bye, sir.